return to Wolf of VIP Boxing's Bell to Bell podcast. I don't know what episode we're on. We're on about 180 something, but I say 180 something every week. You know, my regular co-pilot there with his Wembley haircut, John Evans, all ready to invade Wembley on Sunday morning with the Oldham Ultras before they tackle Southend. Big week in John's life this week. I don't know what's more important to him this week. You know, running around press conferences or Oldham Athletic. I think it's Oldham. Big.
And we've also got the TT races start today, so it's a good 2 weeks in the life of John Evans.
I did know. I wouldn't know one end of a motorbike from the other, but I know it's TT week because there's a couple of boxers based there who are going to come and have fights this weekend and can't get off the island because of what goes on there this week. There's all you Herberts there. So anyway, John, have a great day at Wembley on Sunday, and let's hope Oldham deliver for you. But Southend, another club, almost mirrors Oldham. What's gone on there the last few years? But good luck to both teams. But I hope Oldham win for you, John. And the fact I live about 10 minutes drive from the ground. Hey, and we're forgetting the special guest. The main man, the man in the middle, my pal from Box Nation. We have really enjoyed listening to him on Sunday afternoon on The Zone with Mandy Clark at the Top Tier Show. A regular on the podcast, a good man, king of horse racing, we'll call him tonight. Steedo, Alex Steedman. How are you, mate?
Yeah, not bad. I'm not really the special one, but I am a one, as my nana used to say. I am a one, not the one, and certainly not the special one. I'm a one.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the show on Sunday. I'm going to mention that later on, something I saw there Sunday. Really good show. For you and Andy sort of work well together, giving you're both out and out, you know, blow by blow commentators. Well, it was a really, really good presentation, that on Sunday from Top Tier. Terrific show as well.
Yeah, we're probably going to talk about some strands in our discussion tonight that kind of feed into some of the things we saw. I think we saw a young prospect that I really liked the look of.
But it also gets you later on.
It also gives you an idea of the boxing business as well, and what people are trying to do on the small hall show scene. I think what Johnny Clark's doing is probably in between small hall and big hall, isn't it?
Yeah.
The way he's thinking about. So yeah, there's loads of bits and pieces from the weekend on that show that we can probably talk about.
I'm sure I definitely want to touch on it in our final round, and I think you know the young man I'm going to speak about as well, Alex. I know you and Andy. Well, you sounded like you was impressed with him anyway. Anyway, that's for later on. First of all, we're going to start. John, you got your clock and everything ready. We're going to strip 3 minutes.
Yep, everything's ready.
John, we like starting with you, so we'll start with you this week. And what a career Josh Taylor's had.
Yeah, I don't know if it'll be the final rounds of Josh Taylor's career last Saturday when he got beat off Echo Esserman. But if it is, I just hope the last 2 years don't overshadow what Josh did. You know, we rave about people like Lomachenko and Usyk getting to undisputed status in so many fights. Josh Taylor did it in 18 fights. He ran the gauntlet from the start of his career.
Yeah.
People like Miguel Vasquez and O'Hara Davis on his way up. And then the list of names, I've got them here.
Yeah.
Victor Postel, Ryan Martin, Ivan Barancic, Regis Prograis, Jose Carlos Ramirez, one after the other. Unprecedented in British boxing, the only British guy to ever hold 4 belts. And he did it all in an exciting, no-nonsense way. I don't think anyone can criticise Taylor's career whatsoever. Yeah, he's come off the rails a little bit, but maybe there was a little bit of a sense of after the Lord Mayor's show, after accomplishing everything that he'd done. Phenomenal career, and if it is the end, then he can go away with his head held high. And I kind of hope it is. I don't want to see Josh getting used as a stepping stone. Fingers crossed it's the end, and Josh can ride off to the sunset as one of our very best.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. Listen, Ken Buchanan was Josh's hero, friend, kind of mentor at times as well. He knew Kenny reasonably well, and he'll have known, therefore, how boxing and lifestyle affected Kenny down the stretch. You know, he had dementia and he died sooner than he should have done, really. So he's achieved so much. He's got some money, and it's clear from his performances against Cattrall and now against Esserman that he has slipped so far from where he was. He can still compete at a certain level. He could be in British or better than that title fights, no problem at all. He's still a good fighter to watch. And there were glimpses, I think, in the first 2 rounds of the weekend of the old Josh Taylor, but there was only cameos. There were only glimpses. Yeah. And like John and like Steve, he was supersonic at his best. And I think if you go through the history of the best box fighters, guys like Shane Mosley, for example, Taylor was out on his own with that style. You watch him against O'Hara Davies. That's one of the best in-fighting performances you'll ever see from any boxer, any generation, anywhere, anytime, where you can be right in the heat of battle, but still both brilliant in attack and in defense. He was supersonic that night, and it still remains one of the best performances that I've ever seen in a boxing ring. And that came, 10 fights into his career? And then he went on to Postel a few fights later, and then on to Ramirez. And I mean, just an unbelievable reign. Maybe, Steve, he was always going to burn bright, burn fast, burn quickly. Maybe.
Just a brilliant career. I think we've overran there, so John will get annoyed with me there if I keep going on. Round 2, over to you again, Steve. Matching Moses ITAUMA.
How do you do it? I looked through the top 100 on BoxRec the other day. How do you do it? Almost impossible. But I do think, I'm glad he's gone over the age of 20 and the chasing Tyson youngest heavyweight thing's gone. I think that was something he didn't need on his back, and I'm glad that's gone. And I'd like to see give them another year. There's no rush. You know, he can be the last man standing, this kid, and he can reign for a long time if they go about it in the right way. And I think he needs another year where they can just polish the rough edges. They maybe get 1 or 2 questions. I'd love to see them do a Joshua or Nigel Benn or an Amir Khan. Take him round the UK. He doesn't have to always be on the big bills. Sell him round the UK. Do a UK tour for the next year. But take your time. The names that came to mind for me, guy I saw at the weekend, Milos Veletic, the Bosnian. He might be a surprise guy who knows how to defend himself, could take you a few rounds. Otherwise, you're looking at Michael Hunter and, dare I say it horribly, Jarrell Miller. They're probably the kind of guys you're looking at. But it's a tough ask. How do you match him? Steve, you're probably better served than any of us to know that.
Well, you're matching easy enough because the money's out there. You know, so people will take the chance and the money is there. But it's the right fights. You know, someone to give him 6-7 rounds. I'll come up with Michael Hunter, Effie Ajaba. You know, I don't know how they're going to do it. You know, someone will come along and give him those rounds. I think, you know, the Bosnian Velicek who comes over here, I just think someone like him, a referee would step in quick because he'd just be throwing so much and you're not coming back with anything. That's what would happen in that fight. But Hunter, the one name I come up with straight away when you said this was one of your topics, Alex, was Michael Hunter. I mean, they will get him fights, but that's without a shadow of a doubt, because the money there is there. But that's a really good call about taking him on a UK tour. You know, let the nation get to know him, the casuals who go to these fights, and you know they want to see knockouts, and they'll be seeing it with him.
Yeah. What we want, John, is they probably bring back Kevin Johnson. He'd have been an ideal kind of guy, wouldn't he?
I think he'd have got rid of it. I think it would have been Joshua-esque. I think he would have got rid of him in too. I put him in with somebody he has to chase. Somebody he's got to track down. Somebody who's not just going to be stand there and not be able to keep up with his hands. And Hunter might be the one. If Hunter can employ some movement and get Moses having to track him down and get him frustrated, maybe that might be a good lesson. But I would put him in with anybody, literally anybody.
Yeah, round 3, what could have been here? And it still is flying. And you've got Josh Taylor, 34, 2 years older than him, is Anthony Kakachi, having this swan song at this stage of his career. I know he fought a few weeks ago against Lee Wood, but I just wonder what could we be talking about one of the great Irish fighters of all time if he'd shown this form earlier in the career. I mean, I don't know why it took him to get to this stage. So I remember going back to our Box Nation days, Alex and John, and you know, mate, Carl Frampton, you guys know, said to me years ago when he was in McGuigan's gym, no one could understand why he went and lost the WBO Europe title fight, because he was the one that was better than everybody in Ireland. And you speak to fighters around Belfast, And they'll tell you he was the one that should have been there years ago. And I remember just as at the end of the Box Nation days, he was still working as a gardener 2-3 years ago to make ends meet. He had nothing. I just wonder what it would have been if this had happened earlier in his career. What we'd be talking about.
But he might be in the same way that Josh Taylor maybe was always going to be a fast burner. Maybe Kakachi's the other way around. Maybe because you got to be honest. 5 years ago, he's only just squeaking past Sam Bowen, isn't he? And in a British title fight. Do you know what I mean? That he's a different fighter now, different levels entirely. Now maybe that's because of timing, mindset, training, all of that. Maybe it was always going to be this. I mean, look how long Cattrall's been at it. I remember, John, you, me, we'd have seen. Remember Cattrall against Stalker?
Yeah, I saw Cattrall's debut.
That was supposed to be his coming out party that night against Stalker. It took him about another decade to get there. So there's a lot of things at play, isn't it? There's a lot of things at play. You need a bit of luck. You need the right backing. You need the right exposure, which is something I think we're going to talk about a bit later on as well. There's lots of little bits in the cogs, John, isn't there, to make the wheel turn?
Maybe Anthony needed some desperation because he was in Last Chance Saloon, wasn't he? He's got a family, 35 years old, 34 years old when he got the fight with Cordina. Maybe it was, this is it. If I lose this fight, I'm guarding him for the rest of my life, trying to support 2 kids. And he had to do it. He had no choice but to do it. And now he actually likes it. And he's just turned over a new leaf because you see him in between fights. He looks clear-eyed. He looks clear-faced. He looks reasonably good on weight. And that was always the knock with Kakachi, wasn't it? He didn't live outside. But since he's beaten Cordina, 3 double world champions back-to-back, camp to camp. And I thought he was in a different league to Wood.
Yeah, he was. Timing, though, he got them all at the right time, didn't he? Yeah. That's the only thing. That's the only thing you'd say.
Round 4, John, over to you. I think he was at the press conference today. Jack Cantrell, next fight is Eubank.
I was down at that press conference today. I think it's an interesting fight, this. It could also be one of the worst fights in Britain this year, given the styles. But I think there's jeopardy for Jack in particular. If you look at it from Matchroom's point of view, Harlem Eubank's come along. He's got a great name. He's on form, but he's also someone Jack should beat comfortably. Jack's operated in an entirely different league. The styles make it very tricky. Harlem, today he said he might stand inside. He's not. Harlem's going to move around Jack and make Jack chase him. Now, Jack's not had to track anybody down for years. I think you probably have to go back 5 years before Jack's had to be a predator. Can he still do it? We've seen these lack of gears, this lack of seemingly urgency. If Harlem is like a cat on a hot tin roof for 5 rounds and Jack's chasing, we've got to see something from Jack that we've not seen for years. And if he can't turn it round, if he does lose to Harlem, that's the end of it. There's no coming back at the top level from that. You would expect Jack to be just too good. But there's a lot of jeopardy in this fight.
It's all jeopardy for Jack. And look, I'm nice to see Eubank get this chance because, people always talk about the name, but he's got there through his hard work as well. He stays more than nepotism. Bet like Matthew Hatton did. He got opportunities through his name, but it was hard work that got him there. But, it's make or break for Jack. And, just looking at his record, Jack, and, obviously he lost to a good operator last time, but he's had 32 fights, Jack. 21 of those fights have been 10 or 12 rounders. Even if there was easy fights, that's miles on the clock in the gym, sparring.
Yeah.
Steve.
And he's always been the type of fighter, Cattrall, that he likes to do things at his own pace. Now, in terms of levels, this is a mismatch, isn't it? In terms of levels, what they've done so far, it's a mismatch. However, what makes it interesting and what puts jeopardy at play is the contrast in styles. It's quite possible that Eubank skips round Cattrall for rounds and rounds and rounds, maybe even for 12. It's quite possible that happens because he's kind of a nightmare for Cattrall, but in the same way, he's exactly what the kind of fighter that Cattrall should mop up. And that's someone who's fast, is going to come in, and what Cattrall's good at is timing. He's got really, really good timing. And really, you think over 12 rounds, Cattrall should clock him at least once. And if he does, then that could be that. So you have to feel, you lean towards Cattrall. There's just the possibility that the Eubank has a bit of fun in there.
Round 5, and we'll continue with you, Alex. Does boxing have a weight problem? Your final topic for today.
Yeah, this is really about the weights that fighters operate at. Almost all of them. And John knows, John likes mixed martial arts, MMA, UFC as well. It's worse there, partly because they don't have as many divisions, but it's worse there where they're coming down 2, 3, maybe 4 weights because they want to be strong at that reduced weight. We saw it most notably with Canelo against Amir Khan. What was there? 30 pounds between them on the night. I mean, it should be illegal, really. What I'd like to see, and it theoretically shouldn't be too hard, Stephen John, because in the amateurs, they're kind of on that weight almost all the time. So there is a culture, and that's what this is about. It's about culture. There is a culture in the amateurs where they're used to that environment of being roughly close to their right weight. Carl Froch is the anomaly in British boxing in the last 30, 40 years. A fighter who fought close to his actual weight. The majority of them don't do it anymore. They go 2, 3 weights further down than they should be. It's bad for the health. It's bad for the brain. It's bad for their longevity. And I think it's bad for the sport. What we can do about it, I don't know. But I think something should be done about it.
Yeah, there's little you just say what you can do about it. I don't know, because they have these check weights. They're inside them. You know, I know a couple. Not going to go into names. A couple horror stories recently of weight making. You know, I think a lot of it's down to the employ these strength and conditioners now, who aren't necessarily boxing people, but are telling them they can shrink down the weights. And a lot of these guys that are jumping down these mad weights they shouldn't be at. They're with trainers, younger trainers, and might have 1 or 2 fighters and a strength and conditioning coach on board who tell them they can get to these weights. And you know, I don't know how there is no soul, because the board have these check weigh-ins. Maybe they should have them more regularly. You know, more. You know, just going in there on the spur of the moment and just weighing them. You know, almost like what drug testers can do. I don't know what the solution is. I know we're not on here to say we don't know, but I don't know what the solution is. Like yourself, Alex.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of have to change the culture. Interestingly, John, I mean, Josh Taylor's probably a good case in point, because there's absolutely no doubt that he should have moved up to welterweight probably 4 years ago.
Yeah, look at Liam Davis recently moved up to featherweight and looked back to full of energy again, full of life. There's different ways of doing it, though, isn't there? And the vast majority of professionals I know take off a lot of water. They make the weight by water loading and taking all that off. You're having to change someone's entire weight-making strategies to keep them lower through camp, which doesn't suit everybody.
And let's not forget VIP's Bradley Ray, different beast at light heavyweight. So he was at middleweight and he jumped through the 2 weights and he looks a big light heavyweight. Right, the final round. We touched on rounds like this a lot about hidden gems and stuff, but how hard is it to get noticed? It seems, you know, the big promoters, they're not making a glut of signings at the moment, unless you like Frank Warren will take a chance on junior superstars, you know, Eddie's side. You know, unless you're an amateur king, you're almost left out in the cold. And what made me bring this subject, that I was listening to what we touched on earlier, Alex's commentary on Sunday from Johnny Clark's Top Tier show, and there was a kid there, Jermaine Delwayo. I'd seen the name, saw the results. What he did to the gas, Alessia Quezada, was another level. Now, if that had been on a Sky show, people would be talking about this kid as a big thing. He's got a nice way about him, his QPR shirt. He seems a bit of a gentleman. This kid can really fight. Now, as you say, Johnny Clark, you wouldn't class as a small hall promoter, though he's putting on shows at small hall with his production and how he's doing it, a medium size. But what chance is a kid like that of getting picked up, you know, or someone getting onto Johnny and doing a deal for him to go on Sky or the Zone? There must be so many of these kids, and Jermaine Delwayo the other day was one of the best youngsters I've seen this year.
He was terrific, terrific. I was absolutely blown away. And by the way, Steve, that was a big step up from him in terms of performance, because you watch his previous fights. He's more minded to defense even when he's coming forward throwing punches. But that was a different beast. That was Josh Taylor in his prime in terms of the style, the box fighting that I was speaking about earlier on, where he was getting into range, getting his shots off, but still defensively savvy and really slick while he was in the engine room. He was sensational. Now, he's probably going to be okay because Derek Chisora is his uncle, and that might open doors for him. But I think your general point is a fair one, and I think it's going to get worse. I think there are a lot of small hall shows around at the moment, but I think a bit like the Premier League, where in the last 20 years, that gap between the bottom three and the rest, in terms of the points they get, the bottom three have, between them, in the last decade, dropped 20 points compared to a decade ago, compared to the bottom three in the Premier League. And I think the small hall scene, compared to everything at the top with the Saudi invasion, I think the Saudi invasion is creating a big shadow over everything else. And I think the opportunities for those guys, whether you're Liweo or whoever else, I think they're going to get harder and harder and harder.
Yeah, it seems like you've almost got to get put into a prove-it fight. You can have a great record. You get put into a prove-it fight on a big show. If you win, then you just move quickly through the levels, don't you?
Yeah.
We're not going to get many people plucked from the small halls and put on apprenticeships anymore, I don't think. I think these big promoters are more looking for fully formed prospects that then they can then pluck and put into big fights. Just from 2 miles away down the road, look, we've had Zach Miller got put in a prove-it fight against Nathaniel Collins, and then Masood. He's won. He's going to get a deal, and he'll be in the home corner. Jack Raffet got put in a prove-it fight against Henry Turner. He won it. He's in the home corner. He's looking at big fights. And I think that's just the way it's going now. What will it suit these prospects better to arrive on TV fully formed? Will the guys who've got the longest staying power and the most grit, will they be the ones that make it through? Because these Olympians aren't cutting it anymore. The ones who are getting mollycoddled and turned into stars from a very off. We've had like 2 Olympic cycles where those have all disappointed. And that's left a massive gap of headliners in British boxing. The people who are headlining British boxing now are people who did it on the small halls, got onto television and took it to another level.
I think that's fair, John. I think my worry is that the gap between the top and the bottom might just get so vast that there's just this netherland in between, and it's harder and harder. I mean, look at those Saudi shows. I mean, Bouatsi against Smith. That's headline in the UK material. Even the original fight, Peter McGrail against Dennis McCann before he failed his drugs test. I mean, even that's maybe headline or second in a UK show as well. All of those fights that should be over here are ending up over there.
If you look at the diary now, I was talking about this today. There's nothing in Saudi. The fights that would have, there's no 5 versus 5 in August, that's been gone. So now we've got Wardley Hooney on a show of its own. We've got Garner Bellotti on a show of its own. We've got Yard Smith, you'd assume would be a show on its own. Catterall Eubank on a show of its own. So rather than put them all together onto one big 5 versus 5, that's now spread across 5 shows, which creates 5 events.
There's a big but there, though. There's a big but there, Steve, and that is, I think John's right. But my reading between the lines of why that's happening is not because the UK promoters are suddenly saying, do you know, we need to look closer to home to take care of business. It's coming from the other direction. The dog and the tail in that is absolutely clearly identified. And the fact, what made it clear to me, the fact that Turki Al-Sheikh was, let's say, allowed Usyk against Dubois to be a British show at Wembley, not under the auspices of Riyadh season. The fact that that was allowed tells you all you need to know, that there is at least some understanding that that's okay, or more likely he doesn't care and he's looking in a different direction. And I think almost certainly the British promoters are being forced now to take care of business a bit closer to home, which is great for us, great for the rest. And I think it's right. It's only right.
Yeah, we've spoken about this, haven't we, Steve, where it can't go back to how it was now.
No,
it can't possibly go back. The fans won't accept it.
Promoters won't fight, won't talk to each other.
No.
I mean, there's definitely no love lost between Ben Shalom and Eddie Hearn, but they're still working together. They've got to now.
Yeah, the fans won't accept it anymore. So if there are going to be less shows in Saudi and the promoters do start working together, that means we'll get more big events, which is what we need. We badly need Saturday headlight. We need some stars. Badly.
And I tell you what,
it
Steve,
necessarily suits Saudi this time of year either, going into what their
it might be
summer
that
is and everything. That might be not the full reason, but it virtually shuts. It virtually shuts you down because of the weather there for business in the summer. All the rich sheikhs who go to Monaco for their holidays and London to their homes near Harrods. Where like Steedo does. He doesn't go. He goes to Harrods for his Harrods flat, doesn't he?
Mate, everything's homegrown here. It's from the veg patch. I've got my own bees now, haven't I? But to bring it back to the discussion point that we started off the final one with, and that is that I'll tell you also won't take anymore is that the protected 15-0 fighter still knocking out the journeyman. That is sort of to an extent being consigned to the rubbish bin, and that's why you're getting guys like Kevin Revell, who's lost 4 fights and drawn a couple and won 6 at the weekend. He's a really good fighter, Kevin Revell. Good operator.
And that guy he fought, the guy with Adam in the corner, he's not a bad kid.
Morgan.
He's got a bit about him as well.
Selamutu, yeah.
Tough as they come, because pulling it back that fight at the end. I thought, agreed with you on the scorecards, it was harsh, but he was pulling it back those last couple rounds, and obviously the referee, I think it was Amy Pugh, must have given one of them earlier rounds to Morgan.
Yeah.
Anyway, fellas, thanks very much for this tonight. Pleasure having you on, Steedo. It was great hearing you with Andy on Sunday. John, thanks as always, and good luck at Wembley for Sunday.
Yeah, not been there. The last time I was there was 1994. An Oldham of a team in the top 5 divisions who've enjoyed the least success since 1990. Never been promoted, never been to a cup final, never been to Wembley, never won a trophy. The only team in the top 5 divisions, and the comeback starts on Sunday.
Well,
rules are meant to be broken, John. Rules are meant to be broken. That's what it's there for. I hope you get a better seat than I had when I went to see West Brom against Derby in the game for the Premier League back then. Derby won it 1-0. I had a seat. I think I was 2 from the very top at the back. Literally every time the ball went in the air, I had no idea if it was 100 yards in the air or 5 feet off the ground. It was an unbelievable seat, ridiculous. I hope you got a better one than that.
Thanks everyone for watching. But because it's so rare for Oldham to be at Wembley, and it could be decades. You might not even be alive, John, the next time they're at Wembley. Don't forget your half and half scarf. Anyway, thanks everyone for watching this week, and we'll see you all soon.
For all boxing info, news and latest interviews, amateur and pro, across the north, click and subscribe. VIP Boxing Promotions. Also Twitter, Instagram and Facebook.